All right, welcome back. Sunday fun day. Steve GH, Booyakasha, Zublux, how's it going? We're gonna get started, maybe a little bit more quickly than usual. Just gonna get right back into it. Extra Dite, how's it going? What do you got here? This is the bloggers. You have your own channel, your own emotes. It's pretty cool. Bloggers. So we'll just get another Houdini session going. We'll continue our tire burnout kind of effect that we had yesterday. Might be a quicker stream today, trying to finish up that sand grain tutorial. We'll just kind of make another improvement with that animation. Huckleberry Finn, how's it going? So we'll just go back to the previous day, previous directory vehicle setup. I distributed that file on the Discord. If you go in there, you can get the limbic geometry for the vehicle, as well as the Houdini scene file. So it takes a little bit of time to, basically it's going in and setting up the VDB conversions and all of that stuff. You could cache some of this stuff if you want to speed up that, but I think it's okay for right now. So we were splitting out the ground plane and the car right here. I'm just gonna kind of get started at the top of this scene graph right here, and inserts another null node. So I just use these as like bookkeeping, like bookmarks or little descriptions for my scene graph. And if it's a thing that I'm going to be referencing in other areas of my hip file, I'm going to put this uppercase out at the start of it. So we'll just do this as like out act a limbic car. So we separated out the ground. If I middle mouse on it, this is still the pactalimbics. It's not actual physical like primitives or geometry yet. So I'm just going to turn off this display for a second and make another geometry container. And this one I'm going to do an object merge. And if we go back to our main, you can see this is why I've done those uppercase prefixes, so that they appear at the top of the list. I don't have to scroll through a big mess of other nodes. So I can just grab that pactalimbic car, and now we have it in our new object. So the reason to do this is that I can now go in and add some animation at the object level. So if I just go to my object selector, little gizmo, now I can move things around, set keyframes, and do all this stuff. So the object level is a special part of Houdini. Basically, this is manipulating like you would a rig or something like that with parenting relationships. Instead of going in and physically moving the geometry, this is just adding transform information at the container level of the node. So it's a more lightweight way to change things, because I don't have to physically update the position coordinates or position information of every single point on the geometry. It's just a simple object level transform that describes all of the motion. So we'll start, maybe I'll just make another camera. I'm just going to make a little bit of a shot kind of animation. We might do, hey buddy, you missed it yesterday. That's okay, you can get caught up hopefully. We had some issues with the VOD, so it got split into two different segments and stuff, but it should be available. So I might do maybe this like ultra wide anamorphic kind of camera display, just to get away from the I don't know, Instagram square for a little bit. Switch it up. Oh, you didn't get the notification. Is the Twitch notifications not working for people? So I might do something like this for my camera positioning. It doesn't work? I don't know, it should. I could look into it, but it should be, you got one? I think it's working. I haven't heard from anyone else that the Twitch notifications aren't. It's set up in the Discord as well to notify. So if you turn on that notifications, it should work. Or you can, you should be able to just follow it by the schedule. If I'm not gonna adhere to that schedule, I guess I'd modified my schedule because I took the last Saturday off. So that might have thrown people off. So this is just going to be our vehicle. And we'll take, just going to grab these components here and move it kind of out of the frame. I can turn off the other camera just to visualize stuff. So I'll just hold down the Alt button and click on translation and rotation to set an initial keyframe. And then we can start just adding some simple animation. So he's going to kind of pull into the camera view. You can press Alt and click to set another keyframe. Whoa. I don't know. We're going to maybe need to finesse this a little bit more. So he'll just kind of pull in and stop right there for a moment. I can hold down Alt and set another keyframe. And then he'll start doing the kind of peel out. It's good to know that effects artists are bad at animation. Yeah, it's always just been too tedious for me. So we'll start to do this spinning kind of stuff. He's gonna whip around, doing a donut, kind of 360 degrees or whatever. All right, so this is gonna look really bad, but we'll play it and see what happens. He's got his wires, his tires are kind of winding up. So it looks like if I just press Shift and click on the translation, we can change some keyframes and timing and stuff. You can also go in at the top. If you click this, you have like the dope sheet. Sometimes this is a nice way to move keyframes around without the handles and stuff. This just lets you kind of set the beats or the timing of everything. So if we want him kind of speeding up, how does this work? There it is. We can just start to compress these in a little bit more. Your rotation isn't showing up there though? Yeah, oh yeah, I think I messed it up. So we need to get both of these channels scoped at the same time. So I think we just click this pin. I don't know why my channel editor has been a bit buggy and like things drop in and drop out of that list. Might just be super sloppy. Let me, I'm just gonna save this scene and go again. Quick question, how can you VDB from polygons as density smoke object and keep emitting smoke and maintain shape of VDB density as is instead of SOP solver P scale. I don't know if that makes sense. VDB from polygon is density, smoke object. Oh, into the smoke. I don't do that usually because it's a bit slower to transfer onto the graphics card. If you're doing OpenCL simulations. But if you want to do that, if I just double click to go inside of here, you can just use the volume source node. I'm just going to press escape. If I just do Control B, it just won't evaluate anything in the viewport. So if you just have a density VDB, you can use this volume source node, and you would just replace all of the steps with it maybe. You just add an operation, so it would be density, and you would be doing the target field density. That's the easiest, one of the easier ways to do it. You can also do some fancier stuff with this VDB visualize tree. Like you could take your existing volume and turn it into particles, one particle per voxel, and then source a volume using particles that way, and it should look the same. We'll just go back to how it was before. Yeah. So let's see if our keyframes are working better now. The I don't know if there's a better shortcut to scope like all of the node channels. Not that. Excelente. What is it? Maybe if I do like an animation editor, then I can see them all, right? Maybe it's better. So we were changing the animation of, we moved these earlier, and then we moved the rotation earlier as well. Having some issues selecting some of this stuff. So if we play it now, we should see both that rotation and translation speeds up. So those things are in sync now. We might want to, I'm gonna bring up my frame range again. We might want to add one more keyframe at the end of things with him just whipping around even further. Then I can just hold Alt and click to set those changes again. So now if I just go back to my motion things here, I don't know if you guys have different ways of working or whatever, but this, sometimes I'll just go in and do this kind of stuff. You'd like get rid of some of the extra stuff we don't need, just make this kind of smoothing out the acceleration of it. Fewer points make it smoother. Yeah, it just makes it easier to control overall when you have fewer things in and out. But for whatever reason, whenever I look at animators, editors or keyframes, they have things on like every single keyframe. It's just that when it's their job and they're obsessing over it, they're super, they just want complete control over things. But yeah, we could like get rid of some of this other stuff and just smooth it out that way. Things like why we don't really need to change height. If we wanted to, we could do that. Yeah, I think moving the pivot is a good idea. So if we just look at this car, one of the things I think you can do is under Alt, you should be able to change the pivot using this one. I think it might be the Y. Is it easy to animate the pivot in Houdini? You can animate it just doing, I just missed it. Where was it? Move pivot? This one? Or it was when I was cycling through the Y? Right there, it had the pivot mode checkbox. Okay. You can animate it, just like anything else up here. You can set keyframes and stuff. So something like that. Looks like there's that weird drift right there. I can just press Control-C to copy that V to paste it. We want him to go to like complete stop for a little bit. Maybe with that position that he's stopping at, I'm just gonna go back to outside of pivot mode, and then I'm just gonna change it so that he's if he's going to be moving around the front tires, we'll shift him a little bit, and then I'm just going to want to keep that stuff equivalent. I think I can just delete that one. Oh no. All right, what do you guys think? Is this working? I think it works for you. It's close enough for an effects artist. If we're just worried about the simulation and stuff like that, it should be okay. So I think we can go back into our main Alembic scene, and the Alembic, just the title of that container or geometry node. So what I'm going to do is just kind of butcher. I'm going to grab those nodes and copy them, just so we still have the front wheels aligned a little bit more. So with these X forms right here, I think I need to the hell is going on? Did it work? Might have just been the display flag or something like that. So with this one, what we were doing was just rotating the front wheels to be more straight. And then these X forms at the bottom, I just use $FF to make a constant expression. If I just do shift, we could see that this, I think to be part of the stream, I need to watch previous two first. Yeah, so it's just split into half. We were just doing R&D on the smoke effects, but I will be copying and pasting some stuff from that other network to to grab it. So it's up to you. You can I don't know, I guess it depends on your skill level or how comfortable you are with smoke and pyro and stuff like that, or which areas you're more interested in. So we were just doing a constant expression that was based off of the frame number and multiplying it to get this expression. What I'm going to do is just delete that, and this way we should, I think I might just have to go at the object level. Maybe just pin the view up there to make sure it's displaying everything. So if I do, we'll just start at 0. He rolls into the frame, it stops. We'll try that and see how that looks. So it looks like I didn't get the keyframe on the first frame. And maybe we don't need him. I don't know, it looked a little bit better with it easing like that, like a deacceleration. This is a pretty sloppy way of working or way of animating. We're just gonna power through it and get it over with. And then we could do another keyframe here, and he's just slowly gonna be ramping up his wheel acceleration. We want to go with we're doing just negative rotations to have him rolling forward. Looks like we just need a lot more. Our animation stopped. Maybe it's like we're going so fast that they're spinning a perfect rotation every frame. It's like the classic wagon wheel effect or whatever, like if you are recording the spinning wheel at the same frame rate as your camera, Fast and Furious, John Kuhn's Burnout. If you're recording a spinning tire at the same like shutter speed as your camera, it will just look like things aren't moving. It's a classic animator camera cinematography issue. So at the end, we don't really want him deaccelerating because we haven't finished the move or finished the shot or whatever. Maybe to start it. So if we want to finesse stuff later on, we could add, yeah, this is the the same effect. It seems like every project I've worked on that has a helicopter or some type of spinning thing, they run into this issue somewhere in the pipeline of lighting or something like that, and they have to change the shutter speed or use a different expression for rotation or stuff like that. So basically his rudders are synced up with the camera. Every frame he's taking another picture, so it just looks like the things aren't spinning at all. It's like moonwalking. You made it. Jeff, good to see you. Still been hammering through the Hulai. You got like 1 week left. The home stretch. These swag packs they give everyone better be pretty impressive. Please be over. Seems like yours have been improving as the month goes on. Like a lot of other people, they just have been getting like too tired or running out of time, and they've just been like doing flip books and stuff like that. But yeah, yours have been improving. Pretty impressive. So I think this is good enough for a first pass, just to start moving forward with the smoke and stuff. I'll just save this. And we have the main body. I'm just gonna go back to our Alembic and grab our conversion stuff. Copy that. Paste it over here. I might... Looks realistic. What are you talking about? Jeff's work? Is the cave he made? So I might just save this BDB to disk. You just do file cache. This is a quick way. We don't need every frame. We can just save a static. So this, up here you see we don't have the time dependency flag. And I'm just gonna hack through this expression. This will just be vehicle body BDB. We should save it. Turn on load from disk. So now we don't need to worry about this stuff reevaluating. It takes like a minute, so it's just nice to have that sorted out. And then the tires. I could just do another null down here. This will just be out spinning wheels. We'll keep organized somewhat. We've been working a little bit sloppy, but this should be okay. Yeah, so I'll leave this here in case we want to visualize everything together. But these will be our reference points. So we have this that will be used for collisions. And then we'll have these spinning wheels that we'll pull in for our particle source. And it might be better to make another geometry network. That's Shift S. I'm not a fan of the Shift S. I don't know. Everyone keeps pushing it on me, but I don't enjoy it. I feel like there's too many occurrences where, like, if I do this, I don't like how these wires overlap like that. I prefer, I don't know. It doesn't look as aesthetically pleasing, but it just for information purposes, it makes it easier for me to realize things. So we have our vehicle animation. We could just do maybe obj anim. And then this will be our smoke effects. I'll just go in to this original scene. So up here, we were originally splitting off. I'll just press, you could even do Control X to cut those and go into smoke effects. I'm just gonna turn off the brain for a second, just to make sure the simulation doesn't try to evaluate. And just keep kind of cleaning this stuff up. I can get rid of all of this stuff, I think. So sometimes I used to have a bad habit of leaving old stuff in the file, but I think doing this way just reducing any redundancies keeps it even more clear. So I already named that with a null or whatever. You just go that back to blast, and now we'll be with nulls. So we'll link this one back to our ground, and up here, this one we want to get the wheels. Go back to the car animation. Anima. Messed that part up. And then when you're doing an object merge with the object animation, you want to generally do into this object to apply that object level transformation. Otherwise, you could see it's ignored that animation, and those wheels are not inheriting the transform of that object. So we got the ground, we got the wheels. I'll just fix this naming. And let's take a look. I'll just hide the other stuff for right now. We were scattering particles on the tires and just doing a frame hold to do it on the first frame, and then this interpolate will update the position every frame so that we have consistent rotations and stuff like that. Let's just make sure these trajectories look right. I think it's good. And then we were using this ray to measure the distance to the ground. You might want to expand the ground plane just to make sure we don't run out of pavement or whatever. It shouldn't make things slower or worse to expand that. It's very close to 0. You just, if we didn't have this ray, or we didn't have a ground terrain, we could just compare this against 0, or like delete things by the height. But this is just a little bit more flexible if he's driving over rocks or something like that. So let's turn our simulation back on and just see what's going on with these particles. One thing I might do, I don't know if we'll just start with less particles. What happened here? This guy isn't happy. He's not finding his vehicle collision. We just need to update this to our, did it find it? Just need to update that path. And I think on this, we want to get the object transform. That's like doing the object like we were doing up here into this object. That's the same idea down here, is to say, keep applying that object level transformation. I might get rid of this. I made that initial velocities and stuff quite high. I might just turn that down for right now to kind of debug stuff. Sometimes I'll turn off the guide geometry, just click that magenta flag or whatever. Alright, so it looks okay. One thing I'm noticing is that even at slow velocities, he's still emitting a lot of source particles. So if I just do a wrangle right here, what I can do is like set the color by the length of the velocity. The length of the velocity is the same idea as the speed. It's the magnitude or the strength of velocity. So instead of doing color by it, I can do an if statement. And I just set it to color initially just to make sure it's working, check if it's 0 or not. I could say if it's less than 5, that should be in like meters per second. Remove the point. I might also turn this scatter amount down for right now, just to try to make things cook a little bit faster. I don't know if 5 is too high. Looks like it was too fast. So our emitters turn off when he stopped, and then when he starts again, our emitters are enabled. And then one thing I'm going to do with this pop network, I'd ended up going in here and making our life expectancy pretty low. I might turn that back up and increase the variance a little bit. The reason to do this is that with our simulation and saving stuff to disk, I want more time or more of a frame range than I need. I'm also going to do this E-scale ramp after, so that if I want to delete stuff by their age, I can just do that after I've cached things. So I can still make more adjustments after I've saved this to disk. Just preserve some flexibility. So I'll keep age and life so I can make modifications based off of that. I can just go up to version 2 for this. And this doesn't work. So I'll just do save to disk. So this should be pretty quick to run. We should be ready to go. Does NAge come with age and life? NAge is very weird because it doesn't actually ever appear on your geometry. It's like a special attribute. I don't remember where I found it. It might have been on their specs snippets page. Or it might have been like somewhere I was sneaking around their documentation and I found it. But it's what's it's what they kind of called like an intrinsic attribute. So it's derived from age and life. Is there no way to remove it? Yeah, so it never gets stored on the geometry. Basically, if you have age and life present and you use n age, it will figure it out. So here, this is what I was talking about. It's saying it's an implicit attribute. You cannot write to this. It will never be stored on your geometry. It's like a shortcut. Basically, it says if you have age and life attributes on your geometry, this is just a shortcut to, instead of writing out divide age by life. It's kind of confusing. I don't know why they did this. This is the only area of Houdini that they use this implicit attribute, but you could read about it there if you're finding out. I think like some of the Vex expressions within DOPS, they were using that as like a preset and age for changing things. I don't know, they should have just probably taken the time to write out like age divided by life to confuse less people, or maybe the developers wanted to just be a bit fancy. So we have the particles spinning. Like I was saying, I took the P scale for the age and life attributes. Sorry, let me try that again. So I made my life expectancy longer to have more time that the particles were alive than I really needed. If you wanted to trim that down, one quick way to do that is if you just do a blast. I could say like if the age is greater than 0.2. So now I just have some flexibility. I could go up here and change the length without having to re-simulate my entire effect. Yeah, and then this one was the one that I was doing n age. So that's that implicit attribute that I put in the link in the chat. This time blend we just did to acquire subframe information. So on substeps, the particle position will keep continuously moving or interpolating. And attribute remap, this was just my lazy way of scaling the p-scale. Instead of writing vex code or whatever, this is just a new node. So the way that it's set up right now, it's just saying multiply the p-scale by 2. And then we were using this curl noise inside of here to inject or add extra velocity motion into the sources. And I'm just gonna go inside of here. I'm gonna go pretty big with this division size. And we need to fix this file path as well. We'll go into our vehicle. We'll get that main body again. And we want to check this use object transform to get the inherit the motion and everything like that from the simulate from the object level keyframes that we added to things. We might want to disable all of the shaping forces for right now. If we're going to be debugging things, sometimes it makes sense, or it's just easier to see what's going on if you strip things out initially. So we're just going to be back at a very low resolution, just to verify that things work. So it does look like our tire smoke's being brought in. If I go here and look at the collisions, it doesn't look like we have collision information. So I might have messed things up. So when you want to inherit object transform, you need to tell it which object to inherit the object transform from. So we need to tell it to pull in that vehicle path. I don't know if we still need a SOP path or not. This thing should be should be able to read in our BDB. So it looks like it is reading it in. Let me just try that one more time without the... I don't know. Should be good now. So having this, you can see our container and everything inherits the motion from the vehicle. If you want to double check that, you can use another one of these object merge nodes. And if you bring in velocity, you can check just the overall motion of the velocity in the smoke container. I'll just do a slice and whoops, just trail it so you can visualize this fancy like computational fluid dynamics method of like the Autodesk software we were talking about yesterday. I'll just do ZX, go kind of near the ground. How long did it take you to learn Vex? I'm new to Houdini and it seems a little scary. I don't know, because I was using it was a bit different for me because I was using Houdini before they introduced the wrangles, and it was just VOPs before that. And I was using this programming language called processing before Houdini. So this is like a thing that these people from MIT made that's meant to be like an artist-friendly version of Java that's for just making interesting pictures and stuff like that. It's like coding for artists was their intention behind making a new programming language. So I already had a lot of coding expertise or experience or whatever. This is kind of similar to Vex, I guess, like not in terms of how it runs or how it performs, but just by like you have simple functions. You have like an alpha attribute or alpha thing. Yeah, it's just a library for Java, or it's like, I guess it has its own editor. Like you don't have to compile, you don't have to link libraries and do a lot of the low level stuff. Like you don't need to use an IDE or whatever that thing is, like the you don't have to have your own compiler and everything. Yeah, it's really cool because the programs you write for it are called sketches, and they're like transportable. You can even make like VJ, like audio reactive animations and stuff. But like I was saying, it was a good upgrade from ActionScript. Yeah, ActionScript, I was also learning that a little bit, and it was a mess. But yeah, like you had to learn that for scripting class. ActionScript is a horror. I don't even... Oh, processing. Yeah, processing is pretty fun to learn. I mean, I think my code was a mess too. I did some stuff with like other libraries and things. Python for Maya is kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of the universities should switch over their programming courses to just be Vex. Some things we're doing like RSL, like RenderMan shading language, and that's more similar to Vex. It's like what Vex is based off of. But yeah, just sorry to get off topic, but if you're getting started with Vex, like you can kind of ignore it. The easiest way to learn it might be like if you use some of these drop-down menus here. You see that it will just give you a little preset. So you could see that and like figure out what's happening pretty easily. The new kids are now learning procedural modeling in Vex in the first year. Yeah, I think people are starting to update their curriculum and stuff. I think that's a better route to take. Better than when I went to college. In the first year, our 3D program was still teaching people Lightwave. It was like nobody even uses that anymore. So the other thing you can use is this Joy of Vex. So Matt from CG Wiki, he made this guide that's meant for, yeah, the drop downs are kind of hidden. There's a lot of stuff on this user interface. Shouldn't have clicked that. I don't know why it messed everything up. But yeah, there's these little things that are like, I don't know, because if you're experienced, you wouldn't really use them that often. They're really only for beginners, I guess, but the beginners get too scared by it. They just don't see the extra UI stuff. But if you're completely new and want like a very gentle or slow introduction, this is a pretty good way where he's just breaking things down from a very like assuming no knowledge of coding going into stuff. So that might be a good place to get started. Use Lightwave on the Amiga toaster. I don't know what an Amiga toaster is. That's like one of the SGI workstations or something. That's it. That was the flying toaster screensaver. This is a video editor. So with this one, 1992. With this, that was like Windows 95 or Windows 3.1. That was probably Windows 3.1 or DOS stuff. So this, we're just bringing in the container velocity. One thing you can do is if you switch this to collision vel, we can just verify that we're bringing in that object velocity or object animation. So if I go forward when we're doing like the rotation, because I have that object transform and stuff set up, you can see we're automatically generating collision velocities just based off of this static object mode, static object node and the object transform. So this is really useful because we don't have to generate collision velocities and source them, transfer them. Like I was saying at the start of this stream, just exchanging or sending it the rotation translation information, then it can derive all of this extra spinning velocity vectors in the simulation, and it's a lot faster than generating another volume vector velocity and sourcing it and transferring it to your GPU every frame. And now that I'm realizing my mistake, I think we want to go in here and as well set our object path to get that. I'm just going to do relative, and I guess I'll also do the SOP path. Just to verify that it's colliding. So I think because I wasn't doing that earlier, we're gonna have to save our particle simulation again. I messed it up. I ruined it. But it's okay. This is why I was stripping out all the settings and going to a really low division size. Just you could kind of speed run through everything, verify that everything is set up as expected before you go to your final or higher resolution settings. You guys saw I was adding some more of these cool zone creations yesterday. Just getting some different noise settings and stuff like that for more interesting sculptures or whatever. This pedestal stuff was a really nice idea. The stick. I am Groot. I ended up creating somewhat of a sound reactive sphere, but I'm waiting on the money to get my Redshift license to take it any further. Yeah, it seems like right now with Mantra and Karma, the renderers that come with Houdini, it's pretty slow to make your own animation and render out like a sequence with pretty good results on a single workstation. But you can do, like with Redshift, you should still be able to set it up and just use it with the watermark. Like, you should still be able to continue working on your scene and like practice and learn Redshift. And then when the time comes to finish it, you could buy it or figure that out. I also saw people put watermarks on their demo reel or whatever. I think that's okay. Oh, the demo is only for 17.5. There's no way to download it? This is pretty cool. This feels like a little bit. This one's kind of like what I'm setting up right now. The motion seems a little bit more abstract than like I'm trying to inherit a little bit more velocity. This is a really cool idea though, like having him go through images and disturb it and stuff like that. Colors. Not that I know of. I tried to get it installed yesterday, but I could only install the demo for 17.5. So you should be able to just go, I don't know what happens, like redshift3d.com. I don't know if you need a login, like if you need to be a customer or not, but basically, if you can, the Redshift demo is only 2.6 or something. Because if you download like the plugin, I don't know if maybe they've just set it up in a way that you can't find it. But if you download Redshift and you don't pay for a license, it will still work, but it will just show a watermark. But I guess they don't have it set up for people to download it. I guess you need to be a customer to see the other forums or stuff like that. So we redid our particles. They should be colliding with stuff now. Redshift supports up to 17.529 on demo. Yeah, you could also maybe like, yeah, I guess that's, you could say, like be saving your scenes and then just using 17.5 to like render out of, but it might be too much if you're just getting started with everything. All right. So this should be our new colliding with our particles that are actually colliding with the vehicle this time. Make sure to turn our light on. And we want to, right now we're working at a pretty low resolution. We might want to move our domain around a little bit. So this way we're just simulating more area. Not only will this be where we can add smoke, but even as the vehicle moves through the domain, it will add interesting velocities and stuff like that. Versions that support corresponding Houdini. Yeah, it can turn into a little bit of a mess, like because sometimes side effects doesn't make the old builds available, or just tracking down older installers is hard to manage. If you email the Redshift people, they might give you a link if you just say you're waiting to buy it, or you still want to test it with Houdini 3 or something, with Redshift 3.0 or something. I don't know, I've never dealt with their customer support too much, but it seems like I've heard of them doing that, or Octane, I think they had done that in the past as well. So I might reduce the division size, just start to get closer to a higher resolution, and we'll run this simulation again. So we're getting some more detail in everything. Our simulation is still performing pretty well. We're sourcing in the object, or the object transform. We're getting the vehicle, and then the smoke is just being sourced from those particles. So if I go up here and do show all objects, then we can visualize the vehicle as well. I might just turn off this turbulence stuff for right now, and do a flip book, just to kind of see where we're at and what kind of results we're getting. So this is our professional cinematographer anamorphic camera we're using for this effect today. So we're getting some of those spikes. You might want to look into that, fixing some of that. I remember Steve bringing that up yesterday. So he drives in, and then the motion from him moving through the scene is kind of inherited. He's kind of blowing everything forward a little bit. And then he's doing the rev up. Vroom, vroom, vroom. So this stuff coming out of the back is looking somewhat nice. We're still at a pretty low resolution and settings and stuff like that, but from a small thumbnail, it looks like some things are working. Yeah, they do have that FTP. That's a good link to share. So if you are trying to hunt down really old stuff, that's a good place to be able to find those. All right, So I think I'm gonna pause things. It's just to evaluate how things are working. Just do a kind of a first pass or a low resolution stuff. I have one problem with the Cool Zone Friday thing. That's when you add in the second noise to create repetition in the pattern. Your AA noise automatically swaps to a 1D input, 1D noise, where mine stays 3D input and 1D noise. Weren't able to fix it. Those noises will swap based off of their inputs. So if you're changing them, that you're probably plugging it into the wrong thing if it's not swapping like that. Does that make sense? So if I just make this grid, I'm gonna turn everything else off. Get rid of that box. So what I was saying with this anti-alias noise, we do just look at the signal here, the output. This noise is generating a one-dimensional value. So I was saying to add, let me just reduce the frequency of this. And then I'm going to move it away from the origin to get a different pattern. So I'm saying to add repetition to this result. You plug that in, and this switches from 3D to 1D. So if I go up to 14 or something with this. Does that kind of make sense? So these AA noises will adapt to whatever you plug it into, and everything will switch. Yeah, I might have just been moving too quickly. Sometimes these node UI stuff, like if I click off of it too quickly or something, it will disappear. But basically these will, by the type you feed into it, the signature will update. If you want to change it, you can also just do this drop down and change things. Or if you really want to keep like adjusting stuff even further, I could do like float to vector 4 and then force this to be a vector 4 input. So that's what I do sometimes with this. I always use this to force this input to be a vector 4, and then I can use the fourth dimension with time to evolve the noise over time. So that's basically what I was doing. The first thing I did was do the sine to, this is like the really repetitive, like a wave almost. And then if you use a noise based off of the frequency, you're still adding repetition, but it's just a pattern that's kind of a little bit more interesting or whatever, I guess. So going back to the simulation, one thing I'm going to do with our domain stuff is lower the height of it. So if we're doing this anamorphic camera, we can keep the top of this domain will be open, but the smoke will just be able to freely leave it, and we're able to optimize our, go to the first frame, optimize the resolution of our domain to be a little bit performing a little bit faster. And I might just make our bounds a little bit smaller to start with. Maybe 10 for the X component, but I think we could go down to maybe 8. Or yeah, we'll start with 8. Maybe 8 and 9, just to keep testing and setting stuff up. And then these particles, we were getting the spikes and stuff like that, so we could decrease that age, and then we're just gonna emit smoke closer to the source. So we had that same issue yesterday with the spikes and stuff like that, and I had expanded the lifespan of these particles earlier, just so I would have the flexibility to be able to dial this value in to different numbers and stuff like that. I think we can add this turbulence. I'm going to turn that back on, and let's give this another play. I'm also just going to go back to this vehicle animation and switch my display flag to that hard surface. Before, in the flipbook, it was visualizing, whoops, I always forget this. We need to go back to the high quality lighting and show all objects. So previously we were visualizing the VDB, the SDF or whatever. So just for aesthetic, make things look better, we'll visualize the nice model. So just by fixing some of that particle scale stuff, looks like we already have some better, less blobby shapes, at least. We might have lost our stuff coming out of the back just a little bit. So I think this turbulence we're adding, I'm just going to dial that back, and then I'm going to go in, I'm going to pin the view to stay at this object or the SOP level, and then I'm going to go in here and maybe with the velocity multiply it. We'll try 4. That's ooh, not that one. God damn it. I wish I could just turn that off. Alright. So this tries to do a render or something when you press that one. Turn it off. Alright. So I increased the velocity of the particle sources. The reason to do that is if we're only going to be using them for the first like 0.1 second or 0.01 seconds of their age, we're going to have less impact, or they're going to impact our motion overall a lot less. So we just want that to be a lot stronger. We're just using them for less time period, but when they are active, they should be stronger, essentially. So we might need them even a little bit more stronger. One more thing we could do is just increase P-scale. Another Skadooks, how's it going? Another thing we had done is we sourced less particles, like to speed up the simulation. We have less. The emission rate was less. So that's one thing we could do, is increase the P-scale. Another thing we can do is maybe just this point replicate. So maybe we'll do 5. So this multiplies the existing particle count by 5. And I'm just going to set the shape to spherical. Maybe go up. And then under attributes, we want to copy the source attributes to preserve all of that information. This is kind of a gotcha, because by default it won't inherit that information. So this is another way to, there's like a lot of different ways you can make the velocity stronger or more impactful into your simulation. You can either like multiply, do that source pre-mult thing that I was changing. You can make them bigger, so a bigger particle will have more influence when you add velocity. Or you can just make more particles. That's similar to like making them bigger, but instead of seeing bigger blobs in your scene, you kind of get a little bit more shape or more detail or stuff like that. So I don't know, that we might still need more velocity. I don't know if yesterday when I was setting stuff up, my spin rate was just a lot higher. Maybe today when I was like rotating the wheels, they're not rotating as fast. So let's go maybe this point replicate. Maybe we'll just try inherit velocity. Let me take a look here. Might have bad news. I might go back into this pop network, and I'm just gonna turn off that upwards velocity that we were adding. Just save that to disk again. So I think my laziness from yesterday was carried over. I just wanted more upward direction, so I just added that number. But now, because our tires are rotating differently, we don't need that upward direction anymore. So we'll let this particle simulation cook again. I wish the save to disk in background was more reliable. I think it's bugged out in this Houdini build. So we should have 1 more minute left to cache out these particles. Let's get some water. I'll be right back. You stand while working. You guys had the same jinxed each other. Yeah, it's not anything recommended or too reliable, but I think it's just this it's from like CB2, the Crate and Barrel 2 or something like that. So it's meant to be like a dining table. I don't know if it's the best, like it's not adjustable, so you might need to find a height that will work better for you. But I'm usually standing for this workstation or this Houdini that I'm using. I also have a table back there that I use sometimes that my laptop's at for emailing, or just sit down if you need a break or whatever, go for a walk. But I think because of my height, it's hard for me to find a good sitting situation that works for long periods of time. It's just weird, like I'm like 6'4" or something like that, and things just aren't designed for this height of people. So I don't know what's going on with this. Okay, it looks okay. So I might just do inherent velocity will double the strength of the velocity, and should be ready to do another simulation. You guys stand while you're working? You guys are switching back and forth? You sit down, make sure you stretch. Yeah, it depends. There's some companies I've worked at where they have the adjustable desk. There's like stretches I've gone through of like 3 or 6 months where I just sit, never have it in standing mode, but I generally will try to just like force myself to stand up, or work standing up is supposed to be better, but I don't know. With a multi-million graphics card, he'll have some crazy desk and it's a dining table. Yeah, I bought the dining table so I could spend all my money on the fancy graphics card instead of a fancy desk. So we're starting to get more of that motion coming out of the back. We have this nice velocity scooping motion that happens. So again, this is because we have the car added as a collision static object with the object transform. So it reads in that information. You get really nice collision velocities and forces and stuff because of that. So there might be been standing for the past 2.5 years, definitely helps with the back pain. Yeah, I think for me it was neck issues as well, just because like sitting down to have the monitor at proper eye level, I was always like doing a weird like hunch forward, and it just fucks up your neck. Even standing up, I will try to kind of remind myself to hold my head straight up. So I think we need maybe just even more velocity still. We might maybe just keep these particles alive a little bit longer. That, like I was saying earlier, there's a few different ways we can inject or add more velocity into the simulation. So that might be, we had too much and we were starting to get some of those spikes and stuff. We'll just give this a try. Yeah, I don't think that there's any really ideal posture, or there's no like setup you can have where you're just good forever. The best solution is to take breaks, take a walk every few hours, or stretch, do a gym or something like that. straight 9 lead. You're late. It's okay. There's you were watching the VOD, or you watched yesterday? We've made some progress today. I basically went in, did a very poor animation at the start of the stream, just to have velocities or have some motion of this car moving around. And now I've just ripped out the DOP setup from yesterday, and I'm going in and kind of readapting it to read in our motion. We added the static object that's retrieving the animation that I did of the vehicle at object level. There's a crap ton of tire smoke when it enters. Yeah, I think I still need to work on the density and stuff like that a little bit. Basically, he probably shouldn't be emitting and stuff like that too much as he's like deaccelerating and everything. Right now I'm mainly looking at velocity to evaluate the motion. But we could multiply or like fade in the smoke at the start. I think there might also be too much temperature. So I still had that buoyancy at 1. But we could fix some of that stuff. So on the smoke object, I just go very low with the buoyancy. We might not even, I don't know if this is like exhaust or whatever. Sometimes it doesn't really even have a temperature, or doesn't have like thermal buoyancy to it. So because I was just basically culling my emission based off of a threshold of the velocity. If we want to just fade this stuff in, one of the easiest ways I think is just to animate this P scale. So at the start, we'll start at like 25%. And if we look at this channel, we're gonna want to keep it at 25% until he speeds up again. So basically this portion, when he's just coming in, he's not gonna be spinning his wheels that quickly. He doesn't need as much smoke. So we'll try this. We've basically reduced the thermal buoyancy. We turned off all of that just because it was, this results in seeing a lot of smoke because everything's rising. And then we're trying to have less stuff at the start. So because we made that animation to the P scale, that will affect the density and everything else that's based off of the particles. So velocity and all that stuff will still be lower at the start. The wheels, I can turn them back on. Basically, I was just lazy when I was setting up my visualization and everything. So we should probably expand this would be a good chance to expand our domain. It looks like stuff is a little bit better without the buoyancy. We just want to keep this stuff a little bit lower to the ground for right now. This wrapping motion is still pretty cool. So it's just, we're still working at a pretty low resolution. We'll go back here with this merge. This one is the proper one to use that will have, whoops, just go up here. This one's the proper one to use that will have the spinning tires and everything like that. And then with the domain, we want to increase, I think, Z a little bit. And we'll do the same thing with X. And I think it's a good time to maybe add our forces back in. So I'd turn those off just to debug everything. Usually when I'm doing a big change, like adding motion or just something pretty drastic, it's a good idea to start with forces turned off, and then it's easier to isolate like issues and where they might be coming from. If I had started this with everything turned on, I would have been going through and looking at these like spiking or seeing the buoyancy or stuff like that, and I wouldn't have known like, oh, that could be the turbulence, it could be this reason, it could be that reason or whatever. So I just like, it's a good idea with smoke sims to strip stuff out. Looks great. It's just getting just low resolution, but it's coming along. So these turbulence and disturbance stuff we were adding helps tear up some of these things, so he's no longer underwater or whatever. This is like ink underwater without all that extra shaping stuff. We might want to turn down our density. It doesn't affect the simulation at all, but just visually, we could do it even with this pyro post process. It might just be a little bit too thick. This is kind of blocking everything. It looks like over here, we might want to expand our X container dimensions, so we're not visualizing like the slice of this simulation. Let me think. So what I might do is just go up here and reduce the P scale. This is going to give us less smoke and stuff like that in general. We want a little bit more in the X dimension. We could also just bring the center a little bit closer to the camera. We still have this corner. That should be. Might want to do the same idea with Z. So our camera is kind of inside of the container. I'm gonna start with a lower density. We might sneak the division size up a little bit. We should still be running pretty quickly with the OpenCL stuff. I should probably double check as well with the viewport settings that we have that volume resolution limit turned off, just because that's a little bit annoying to you think you're seeing things at the high quality, the actual resolution, but you're really seeing like a clamped resolution. Is frustrating. So I'm just hoping here to see some of this seam issue fixed. I did a few things to decrease the overall amount of smoke that we have. I decreased the P scale for our source, so that's just going to create less gas or less density, less smoke in general. It should also dampen some of the forces. The velocity that gets injected into the simulation should be a little less strong. The resolution's a little higher. We should be seeing some little bit more detail in things. And then I also moved the domain so that we're no longer like viewing it, the intersection or the edge of the container. Vroom vroom. It seems like effects artists are always pretty good at making little sound effects for the stuff that they're making. This is pretty nice. Get these headlights, the tail lights turned on. Make this at night. So this one that shoots off is a little weird. Might just be changing the seed on like the turbulence, like the offset of the curl noise that we're adding, or the overall turbulence that we put into the simulation. Those might help. Possible this density that I'm visualizing here is a bit too thick, or I'm sorry, too thin. Like, we're not seeing very many shadows, or it's hard to evaluate the shape of everything at this point. But everything else is starting to feel a lot better. The motion, so it seems a lot, the height of stuff is staying down. We might even be able to turn the height of our container down a little bit, but I think it's good. We could go a little bit lower with it. Looking so good. You're very kind. It still isn't. It's not very good. How come you use Linux? Because I'm a communist. No, it's a free software. You don't need to pay a license. I don't need to worry about. I don't need to worry about Microsoft shoving updates at me that I don't want. Free is good, yeah. Reducing licenses or dependencies is nice. If you're like working at a visual effects studio, you want to hire 30 people to come in. I don't need to buy 30 copies of Windows to license them. You can't play Overwatch though. I'm stuck. The only game I can play is Left 4 Dead 2, and the servers are empty. But I've been on Linux because of John. It's been a month and you like it so far. Yeah, I think it's getting easier to use. It's also just, overall, we're kind of at an interesting point with operating systems. So a lot of artists or a lot of like animation people historically used OS X or Macintosh. But recently they stopped supporting NVIDIA, or they stopped using NVIDIA cards. So like Redshift and Octane and a lot of the GPU renders, they're just starting to support OS X now because they're like porting stuff to Metal. But overall, it just seems like with OS X, you're paying a lot of extra money for hardware that is generally the same. Yeah, there's some charts going around. I think like the VFX Arabia guy or whatever on Twitter was sharing a chart. Linux with memory management and just performance speed and stuff, it should be the fastest for running like high data simulations and stuff. So it's a lot of reasons. But it is interesting, like if you look at South America, when like switched from Lula to Bolsonaro, the first thing they do is immediately uninstall the Linux stuff the government was using and switch everyone over to Windows. Like we're taking over. So HShop command in NVIDIA, you like those? So you could do HTOP is a nice. It's kind of like the task manager for Windows or activity monitor on OS X. You get a nice command center. You feel like a hacker. You're in the Matrix. It's a big flex. And then NVIDIA SMI is the same idea as HTOP, but for your graphics cards. So you can see how much OpenCL usage is happening. You can keep calling it, or there's, when I run the next sim, I can show how to do that. You can also do screen fetch if you have this installed. And then you get a interesting, this is just like the hardware info basically. You see your graphics cards, your CPU and stuff like that. The only thing stopping me from switching to Linux is lack of Adobe products, particularly Illustrator. Yeah, I've been trying to wean myself off of those. They have like Inkscape. These aren't as good as the Adobe products and stuff like that. But where is this? Darren is good. Whoops. These are like I don't know. I'm not as familiar with the. Maybe I need to switch to another pencil. This is like I'm not too familiar with this design stuff. But yeah, Adobe is pretty absurd. Recently, I've realized it's like you're paying them $20 a month just to use a painting application. Like MS is just it's a simple software. It shouldn't. There's no reason for it to be that expensive. Just draw 3D. Just design everything with Houdini. It is like Photoshop is more expensive than Houdini Indie. It doesn't make any sense. So where were we? Yeah, so we wanted more smoke density overall. Yeah, Adobe is insane. They also had some bad kind of software practices, like when the Venezuela stuff was happening a year ago. There was a week where they just turned off everyone's Adobe licenses. Like they just deactivated from the cloud all of their software. So if you were like a designer working in Venezuela, you just woke up and your software didn't work anymore. It was because of they like interpreted the sanctions that the US put on them in a very like hardline manner, and was just like, all right, well, we're not gonna exchange any goods with Venezuela. And they turned off all of their, this is just a bit scary to have like a company that can just decide to turn off your livelihood like that one day. So this turbulence here, I'm just going to change this offset. There was the one upward poof that's, I'm just going to do a few different noise seeds to maybe get rid of that. It's possible it's already embedded in like the particle motion, but if I just try a different noise generation, I'm also going to do the same thing with the seed on this turbulence. We'll be able to see if it still exists. We know that the problem is coming from the source particles. And then I think I want to go a bit higher. We'll go back to 15 with this density. Experience with any other 3D software. Yeah, so I'm just making sure all my settings are okay. So I started with like 3ds Max or Gmax a long time ago. And then in college I was mainly learning Maya. I have some experience with Maya, but pretty much all my effects experience is with Houdini. I don't really know how to do any effects in Maya, just like some modeling, scene, and like lighting stuff. I know some Cinema 4D concepts and stuff, just because the Cineversity is like really good content for learning just like 3D design, like 3D, the talks that they give are really nice. But it seems like it's getting closer to Houdini is more usable for a general 3D package. Like 5 or 6 years ago, you couldn't really use it for modeling. You couldn't really use it for even like rendering. There weren't that many 3D third-party renders that were supported in it. The Node X stuff for Cinema 4D, I think I saw a little bit. It's kind of like VOPs inside of Cinema 4D, but it's nothing that it would make me want to switch over. I think just in general, the way that the Maxon, I don't know, the way that Cinema 4D works, I don't like. It's just, it's a bit too wacky the way that they make up names like X particles, Node X. Like, I don't know. I'd rather just have the actual concepts. Like Houdini, I think, does a better job at giving you the description of what's going on. Cinema 4D, it's like we're gonna clone a matrix onto this points and the effector, and then it's very like abstracted level of explanations as to what's going on. But like Houdini is, you're just gonna copy to points. I don't know. It just seems a little bit more it might be more technical, but it seems a little bit more accurate into what's actually happening. Yeah, I think nodes rule, but also just Vex inside of Houdini is super powerful as well. Like, I don't think Cinema 4D has any just like high performance. I don't know. I have seen some people make plugins and like little tools and stuff, but from what I've heard talking to other cinema people, it's kind of like you can either do like very specific things very well in it, but then going out of it and like making your own workflow or making your own little interesting like technique is a lot more difficult. So we increased the density of the smoke, so we're seeing a bit more shaping and shadows and stuff like that. There was also the weird thing that was puffing up at the last simulation. So it looked like just changing the noise seeds of turbulence and stuff fixed that issue. Sometimes your noises just produce an odd result. You just do a new random generation and it fixes some of those issues. They got espresso. It's kind of like Bops, but I never learned it. Yeah, they've had espresso for a long time. I had a really good 3D teacher when I was in college, and he actually like advocated to bring in Nuke and start teaching us the node-based compositing stuff there. And I remember talking to him and be like, that was the time I decided to do an independent study and start learning Houdini. And I said like, yeah, the node-based workflow in Nuke is really nice. I like it. I want to try this for 3D. I was like, I know Cinema 4D has the espresso stuff. And he kind of told me, he was like, no, like it's not as good as you think it is. The Houdini nodes is where it's at. So it might be our disturbance might be a little bit too high. Some of this stuff is getting like a bit fuzzy by the end. One of the unfortunate things, we're using pressure to drive some of the noises, like the disturbance amount. And when you add the moving collision object, that kind of messes with the pressure field because it affects the velocity, which also changes pressure and stuff. But we'll keep going with it how it is right now. I'll just go in here with this strength. I might just go down to 5. Then I might go at a lower division size again. We're going something closer to what we were working at the end of yesterday. around 100 million voxels. It's too many. But yeah, we'll just try this higher quality results. Might be getting close to wrapping it up for today. We made progress, did our lazy man's animation. The people that were asking about that NVIDIA SMI stuff earlier. So with Linux, it's pretty nice to visualize like GPU usage. If I just do watch -n 0.5, this every 0.5 seconds will run this command. So it will just keep refreshing the GPU usage. So I can look at this RTX that I'm doing the simulation using. I'm still not using that much of the total memory within it. So it's still, I could go at a higher resolution of the smoke, but it would be slower. So for right now, it's okay. It's hard to know exactly how much of the GPU RAM is used for solving this, because I think I still have some other software that was using this, but it's somewhere less than 16 gigabytes of GPU RAM. The GPU makes you moist. Yeah, it's super nice to have that large GPU memory available. But yeah, it should be less than 16 gigabytes of GPU RAM. We're still getting like a simulated frame every 5 seconds or 10 seconds, somewhere between that. So it's not too bad. I'm just gonna press escape. So one thing I forgot to, so I already had that turned off, which is nice. I might go a little bit higher with the division size just to speed this up. This is gonna be too slow before. So we should be able to get this simulation running within like 10 minutes or 5 minutes for the full shot, which is still a good speed to be working at for the stage that we're at now. Generally just the final production render quality, like cache, you turn the settings up, maybe that takes a couple hours, but other than that, you want to be working pretty interactively or pretty quickly. So we should just be seeing a little bit more detail in that I decreased the disturbance strength. So hopefully things don't get as fuzzy just by the end of it, starting to see a little bit streaks and fuzziness or blurriness overall is just too much disturbance all the time. So we'll let this new simulation run. It's going faster than before, and I'll get some water and be right back. So it still isn't that far along, but looks like we're starting to see a little more detail. And then maybe decreasing that disturbance is preserving just a little bit more of the underlying motion of this stuff. It's pretty cool so far. Nice detailed, just persistent exhaust or whatever. I don't know, he's rolling in and burning a little bit of rubber when he stops. Find me twice. Some people give advice to remove extra attributes, etc. before solving or rendering to make it faster. Is it true? Is it true for this situation? It's kind of true for this situation with geometry. It can hold a lot of extra attributes. I'm mainly working with a volume right now. Instead of volumes having extra attributes, you just have more volumes. So with this stop network, I'm only importing the density field, which is just like one attribute of the smoke simulation. So instead of bringing in the velocity, the temperature, the pressure, the collision, it's just a lot more information to move around. So if you don't need that, you'll have smaller files. You'll be able to read and write them from disk more quickly. The renderer can load them in more quickly. So it's true for pretty much every situation, I would say. With geometry, like if you're doing a particle simulation, I think I did that up here. So when I saved my particles to disk, I can't click on it right now because I'm flipbooking. I just kept the things that I needed: the position, the p-scale, age, life, and ID, I think. So the solvers will create a lot of extra attributes to keep track of what they're doing. Like there's a target velocity, there's a force attribute, there's a drag. All those physical properties, you don't really need them after the simulation unless you're going to use them for a special shading method or something like that. This is pretty nice. We're getting some good detail. So wherever you can, it's a good idea to clean up extra attributes and just not keep them around. I don't know in terms of rendering, like how much faster it would make rendering. Nobody's really done a lot of side-by-sides of that, but to keep your file size low and just to keep things organized and stuff like that, it's a good idea to get in the habit of cleaning them up and stuff like that. If you think about it, like you have points and they have a position attribute. That's three. It's a vector, so it's three components: x, y, and z. And then if I add another attribute that's like the target velocity, that would be three more components. Like you would have a target velocity for x, y, and z. So just having those two attributes would double the size of your file, your geometry, because you're saving two vectors or two sets of three values. So if you just think about it like a spreadsheet, you're, instead of saving 2 points with each with position values, if you save 1 point with a position and a force or a target velocity, you're still saving the same sets of numbers, but you have less geometry. So if you have like points, a million points with 20 attributes, it could be 20 times the size of just the points with just a P attribute or just the one attribute. I don't know if I did it's kind of confusing way of explaining it. So we're getting some nice shapes, a little bit more detailed shapes. Seems like I probably would want some more disturbance. We might need to change the method that's getting added, just because the pressure from this car or a static object can kind of mess that stuff up a little bit. But for right now, for our first kind of past with adding the animation and the motion, where overall things are behaving pretty nice. We might want more of that turbulence, the gas turbulence node as well, because our intention, or the reason of using that yesterday, was to expand the smoke, or to make it take up more area. With that turbulence, just moving things in, like a curl noise in different directions, generally expands the visual space that they take up. We're getting some good results anyways. So this object collision stuff is really cool. It's nice you get all this velocity for free, kind of. Like, what I mean by for free is we're not sourcing any extra velocity, any extra fields into our simulation. What we did is just import this vehicle using the static object and the weeping smoke over the surfaces. Yeah, it's very realistic, or I don't know, it's very cool to see, I guess. Sweeping. I thought weeping was a special fluid terminology you knew, or something like that. It's like with cloth, there's like warp and weft of a cloth. I thought weeping was like a special CFD terminology for fluid motion. Weeping for Hulai. But yeah, with the car, we just brought in the object transform, or to apply that to the static object, so it's very quick for DOPS to figure this out and determine every frame the velocity to add. Earlier in the stream, I was visualizing it, bringing the collision velocity to a slice, and when the car was rotating, you could see we were getting spinning velocity that gets added to the simulation. This just adds more accurate fluid dynamics or fluid motion to the sim. So it might be too much smoke, probably. Like if you were the art director or compositor or something, you'd probably dim it down a little bit. But for effects artists, it seems like they're always, they want their work to be the most noticeable, so they're rendering smoke out like super dense, and then the compositor goes in and just adds it in at 20% or something like that. It's just that they're not as concerned with it. As long as it's looking real, they're happy. But as the effects artist, because you're always like, this is what I spent all the time on, I want everyone to notice it. So you're making everything like very opaque or too dense. Even just the continued forward motion of the smoke when the car stops. Yeah, basically it's just a really good way to work with adding velocity to smoke simulations. Even if you're doing other things, like sometimes I've just animated a sphere and made it invisible, and you just move it around to add force or velocity to a simulation. You can do the same thing with like a grid or a box, and then wave it like a fan. you'll just get much more accurate, interesting velocity instead of like just adding particles or adding volumes with a direction. It just always seems like you're using like a leaf blower and blowing stuff in that way. But with static objects and then moving them around, you get a lot more weeping or sweeping motion of like vortices curling around things. Yeah, and then even as this deaccelerates, the way that it inherits and like brings some stuff with it, everything just behaves a lot more like a fluid with the static object animation. Some poor soul somewhere is rotoscoping smoke while effects artists bump the density up to 400. Yeah, the compositor is trying to key an alpha channel from smoke to make it less. They're just pre-multiplying the alpha 5 times to make it less bright. Sometimes if this collision velocity is too high, like sometimes it's just too noticeable or whatever, you can go in and just multiply that field. If you just take with like a gas linear combination or any node like that, you just multiply collision vel by 0.5 or something like that, and then you're just scaling the collision velocity. You think I increase collision vel? Some of this at the very end, it just seems a bit too powerful, but you can scale it up using that same method. You can also do some other stuff, like I was doing dilate or erode on the VDB, so we could make it bigger or smaller to basically treat it like our vehicle is a bigger thing swinging through our scene, and that will just have a bigger impact over everything else. You live for the overdone velocity. I think it adds something to visualize a force that's never truly realized. Yeah, it's also as well like visualizing stuff the way we are with white smoke on a dark background. The motion's a lot more noticeable, but if we were putting this over like pavement or in an environment, this motion of the velocity probably wouldn't be as noticeable. So we might want to play it up even more. So what are we at here? Frame 227. So we're almost fully cached for this shot. Let me... It looks like it took 15, 16 minutes or something like that. It's still pretty quick that we're able to work at for a 10-second effect or a 10-second shot. If we move to a higher resolution to cache it, we might be spending a couple hours, but might be worth it to get more detail and stuff overall. Probably gonna keep, maybe on Wednesday we'll try to make some more tweaks to add a little bit more detail to stuff before we increase and do a final high resolution. This is probably gonna be it for today for the work or the changes we do. We've made some good progress. Just within a few hours, we did the laziest car animation in the world. I guess you don't even really notice a lot of the mistakes I did now that the smoke covers everything else. What do you think about smoke from exhaust pipes? People can clearly see it. A lot of cool realistic smoke around, but no smoke from the pipes. Yeah, we could add smoke from the pipes. It kind of depends. I guess we could do different colors, and that might be pretty interesting, like mixing black and white and stuff like that. One of the reference I was looking at yesterday with the Ken Block car, there was like other directions coming out from underneath, like different exhaust pipes or something like that. But we could definitely add some stuff from the pipes, just to get more interesting stuff happening there as well. It's a good idea. Fun watching the progress of this. I like the pipes idea too. Yeah, so we're moving along, keeping things moving. So we'll just keep trying to improve things on Wednesday, and keep moving forward. keep on keeping on. So this is probably gonna be it. See people on Wednesday, like I said. I hope we'll put the files on Discord. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday.